Did you know that in 1911, a man from Edinburgh drove his car to the top of Scotland's highest mountain? Neither did I. I went to Lochaber looking for a view.
This is the Corpach shipwreck, otherwise known as the Old Boat of Cool, or as that boat that everyone likes to photograph with Ben Nevis in the background. That's Ben Nevis in the background. But why is it here? And is there a better view of the UK's highest mountain to be had without climbing to the top?
I've climbed to the top 3 times now, and I'm doing it again in the summer, but you don't always get the best view that way. Usually because it's shrouded in cloud.
If you've ever climbed Nevis on the tourist route, it does kind of zigzag to the top, and it can be a bit monotonous, and that can be kind of the hard part of it, the kind of psychological torture of never quite knowing where the summit is. We're not scaling the North Face or anything, but it's not that easy. There's a mental element to it.
The good thing about going to Nevis is that if you're coming at it from the south, which, let's face it, most people will be, you get to drive through the vast, brooding magnificence of Glen. Not a bad start to any day.
There's a lot going on up here. Fort William is known as the hiking capital of Scotland. You can go to Glenfinnan and see the viaduct, or hang out for the Jacobite steam train going over the top. You can climb the monument or go to the West Highland Museum and poke around for a bit. But I've always wondered about that.
Shipwreck is maybe a bit grand. It's actually a grounded fishing boat, the Golden Harvest. It was originally called the MV Dayspring. It's 26 metres long and was built in 1975 and used to trawl the North Sea and later the waters off Northern Ireland. Then it came back to Scotland. There was a plan to turn it into a seafood restaurant and then a houseboat. On the 8th of December 2011, the Golden Harvest was anchored in Loch Linnhe when a storm blew in and tore her from her moorings.
The Coast Guard came out and helped to land her safely here, where she's been ever since.
You can find the wreck near the village of Corpach, which in Gaelic means something like field of corpses.
It's not quite as grim as it sounds. It's thought to have been the place where they rested with the bodies of chieftains on their way to be interred on Iona.
Nowadays she's all over the internet, a well-known landmark. Google Ben Nevis and this is one of the pictures you'll get. It's just a nice contrast of a shot.
I'm not normally a fan of litter or wreckage or detritus on beaches, but with the whole ghost ship thing going on and Nevis in the background, and I think we can make an exception for this.
But how do you get a better view without climbing all the way up?
This is Neptune's staircase.
It's Scotland's longest staircase lock.
8 locks that bring the canal down a bit, so it can hit the last couple at the bottom and get down to the level of the Atlantic Ocean.
Construction started in 1803 and carried on for 20 years. It's impressive, and so's the view. But what about something different? What about something with even less effort?
So, I thought I'd be clever and drive into the Nevis Range and take the gondola ride up to the top.
The Nevis Range mountain gondola climbs 550 metres up the north face of Anach Mor, the 8th highest mountain in Scotland, which also makes it the 8th highest mountain in the UK.
Unfortunately, when I got there, it was completely shut down. They're doing some kind of mountain biking thing at the moment and they're constructing all the stuff.
I drove around, looking for the best view I could find randomly.
And then I went to the West Highland Museum to see if I could dig up some history on climbing in the area.
On the way there, I passed what I took to be a random model of a vintage car.
And then I found this. On the 9th of May 1911, Henry Alexander left Fort William in a Ford Model T with the intention to drive to the top. Here I thought I was being clever driving around looking for the view.
This guy one-upped me 113 years ago. The Ford Model T had been in production for 3 years by this point. It was utilitarian, a car that could be mass-produced for the masses. It wasn't the first car to be put together on a production line, but it was the first to be as mass-produced. The Model T was made between 1908 and 1927. They were pretty adaptable, and were used as fire engines and even tractors. Henry Alexander Sr. was a Ford dealer in Edinburgh. Legend has it that he wanted to show somehow that the Model T was superior to the handmade cars produced here. The story goes that he challenged his son, Henry Jr., to drive one to the top of a mountain. And not just any mountain, under pain of losing his allowance. That sounds like the perfect setup for a comedy. Before he set off, the ground had been prepared a bit, with wooden boards used where they were needed.
Where the foliage and the landscape got in the way, they just blew it up.
There's a display dedicated to the expedition in the West Highland Museum, complete with 6 minutes worth of silent footage from an original film. It shows Henry driving to the top, ably assisted by men in tweed. I'll leave a link to the footage in the description.
He returned victorious 9 days later. In 2011, a group of enthusiasts did the same thing with a Model T Ford. These days we're a wee bit more environmentally informed, so they weren't allowed to drive it to the top.
Instead, 71 volunteers carried all the bits of the car apart from the engine to the summit, then assembled it when they got there.
Then they took it apart and climbed back down.
In 2018, the bronze Model T, complete with Henry Alexander and his brogues, was unveiled by his grandson in Fort William Town Centre.
I'm not sure what's more of an achievement. Driving it to the top over 9 days, or carrying it to the top in a day and then carrying it back down. Either way, pretty hardcore.
As for me, I wasn't able to find a better view than this one. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying, but I don't think modern cars are quite as sturdy.
Tempting.